My name is Karrieann Soto Vega. Karrieann en español, Karrieann. I'm at Syracuse University. I'm a PhD candidate at Composition and Cultural Rhetoric, and I am a teaching associate at the Women's and Gender Studies Department. So definitely cross-departmental, and so I guess humanities would be the area that I do. And I'll talk a little bit more about what I do. We're just introducing each other.
Okay, if I may, good afternoon. My name is Elizabeth Abraham, Deep Concern in Puerto Rico. Just a question, what is it that you do? When you put the subject, what, can you give me a summary, because there's so many other good places. Basically, what do you present? Or what is your
Oh, I'll be talking about that in a second.
Okay.
If everyone else can introduce themselves.
Elizabeth.
Hi, I'm Mary Leonard. I'm a professor at the University of Puerto Rico in iOS. Also, I'm Karriann's master's. And I teach literature and I run a film program. And I'm interested in artists, filmmakers, and artists in general. So, anybody who's interested in that stuff, I'd love to know what you're doing.
Hi, my name is Susan, professionally known as Rescue Poetics. I'm a poet based out of Jersey City, working and part of the Jersey City Puerto Rican heritage, culture, and arts. And we're looking for ways to get into Puerto Rico and really make a difference within the community through heritage, culture, and arts.
Hi, I'm Olivia Camacho. I'm an Antioch and also community college. I teach sociology. But one of the things that I do is I connect art with social issues. I'm doing that for a lot of years.
Linda Caicedo, jubilada bibliotecaria at New York Public Library, 1979. I am also a freelance photographer for my family and community. I also work at the Bronx Library Center as a volunteer curator of the Heritage Gallery on the 4th floor. And I'm really glad you're all here. I'm glad to see everybody here.
Over there? In the back?
Oh, okay. My name is Marilyn Cruz. Presently, I'm principal at a PSI school in Brooklyn, and I'm also an actress and writer.
Yarani del Valle, actress, activist, and I have an organization called Kaiku Cultural Platform that matches independent artists in the island of Puerto Rico with community organizations in the city of New York, so they can have collaborate and have a crossover.
My name is Noel Quiñones. I'm a director of service learning and civic engagement at the Brooklyn Friends School, and I run an arts organization in the Bronx called Project X. We're the first slam event.
Hi, my name is Karrieann Matrtínez, and I'm a playwright and an educator here in New York. I'm also an adjunct professor at a community college, and I do drama and education projects. And I'm here today because I do want to go to Puerto Rico and do drama and education projects in schools and where I can go and help. So that's what I do.
I'm Eva Cristina Vasquez. I'm an actor, also playwright. I teach as an associate professor at the World Languages ESL and Humanities program at York College. And I'm the new director or coordinator of the Puerto Rican Studies program. And I'm also a founding member of Teatro Círculo.
My name is Rich Villan. I am a poet, essayist, a community educator, and social worker. I just started about 3 weeks ago with the Silverman School of Social Work as a community navigator. And I have been in the realm of arts education and arts activism for about 14 years now.
I'm Steve Weimer from Medgar Evers College. I am the director of the Educational Technology Center, also a filmmaker. I'm one of the advisors to the ALAS group at our campus, which is the Association for Latin American Studies. And I'm also a Camuiano because I have a finca in Camuy, so I have a vested interest in that.
Right with the odd one out here, I'm actually in government. I work out of the mayor's office. I'm working in the mayor's response to Puerto Rico, but I come from a family of artists out on the island. I know that's what's needed to liberate the mind, soul, and spirit. So just wanted to be here. Well,
That's interesting.
Hi, I'm Sandra Rivera. I'm a dance artist and dance educator. I just started a dance company last year, Zemi Dance Theater, to document the Puerto Rican experience, and I also do sacred dance and ceremonial dance at Union Theological and the people of St.
Thank you so much. We're just doing introductions. I know you just walked in, but if you can.
Well, my name is Rico Perret. I just got here from Puerto Rico. I like it. I'm a writer, student. I'm working on master PhD, and I'm working on a book. So.
Thanks. I was hoping that would help everyone kind of connect in terms of interests, or, you know, after we are done speaking, we will all speak from our own positionalities and what we want to get out of this session specifically. We're doing literature and humanities, but I think it's very broad. Arts would also be the umbrella. As to your question, Elizabeth, I am, as I was saying, a PhD candidate, so I study and I write and I read and I look at things and I try to analyze them through specific frames. And so in my PhD work, in my dissertation, I study Lolita Lebron, the Puerto Rican nationalist woman. And I am trying to write a rhetorical history. So I go from all of her different strategies and tactics to advocate for Puerto Rican sovereignty throughout life, and then kind of how that figure has been taken on. But today, I am actually talking about a few other groups, and they are groups that are now in the island right now doing the work of liberation, as we were talking about before. So it is, in a sense, still decolonial work, and it's decolonial work that I have seen and supported from the diaspora, right? I do go and visit every time I can, but I'm a grad student, so class. But still, I have met some of these specific groups. I will be looking at Puerta Bajo Teatro and Defend PR, or Defend Puerto Rico. You probably have heard these names, and probably a lot of you can tell me more about them. I'm talking from the kind of text-based analysis that I have done from here. I'm using Jose Esteban Muñoz's world making as a kind of frame to talk about what they are doing, because it's what I perceive to be crossing boundaries between cultural, artistic performance arts, and real life advocacy. Some of this work has been going from before Promesa, throughout Promesa, and now after Hurricane Maria. I believe that these two groups, Puerta Bajo and Defend PR, give credence to the call Despierta Boricua, hence my first part of the title. So going over the work of these groups, I argue that in spite of natural disasters and neo-colonial oppression, Puerto Ricans maintain a defiant will to survive. So that's something that has come up in a few of the panels that I have been at, this will to not be erased, to survive. And for this, I think that Jose Esteban Muñoz's work is really fitting. He talks about queer people of color and their ability to survive through cultural performance. So they assert a kind of identity and an identity of survival through performance, specifically drag. And so there is a theory of disidentification, this is from his book, as a strategy of survival. And he talked about counter-publics, so these performers are counter-publics, and he defines them as, quote, communities and relational chains of resistance that contest the dominant public sphere, end quote, which I believe is applicable to Vuelta Abajo and the FED-PR. They are counter-publics. They're not the dominant sphere. So I believe that through cultural performance, these groups establish what Jose Munoz calls alternative views of the world. Hence, they are engaging in world making and Puerto Rican world making more specifically. This morning, I heard Senator Gustavo Rivera say that, well, there are already people doing the work. Let's augment that work. And I'm following up by saying that we should also amplify this work. And so that's why I'm talking about them. So let me start with the work of Vuelta Abajo. They describe themselves as colectivo de artistas transdisciplinarios que adopta su nombre con la iniciativa de habilitar y activar un espacio para la investigación y formación artística enfocado en el teatro como medio. I think that last part, como medio, is where they are getting at this autogestión. So it's doing the work for the people, from the people. And to this end, they have a series of initiatives where they engage in taking over spaces for Puerto Rican world making. One of them is the Círculo de la Plaza. And they also have another initiative that's called Colorea las Calles, where they go to abandoned buildings and then they just paint them and repurpose them for, again, the arts and just to create a kind of vision of the vibrant community that they want to be. And so they are now, after Hurricane Maria, still doing the autogestión as Taller Libertad. And so if you want to look for what or where to donate, this is one of them. They're part of this Brigada Solidaria de Mayagüez. Del Oeste, thank you. Brigada Solidaria del Oeste. So they are based in Mayagüez, but they go outside of Mayagüez, right? Cabo Rojo, and you can chime in whenever. So besides Taller Libertad and Vuelta Abajo, there's also Defiende, and so this image is from their website. You can just Google them and you can find it. They're also a collective of artists who have been creating texts of cultural celebration. I've seen videos of slam poetry actually from one of their members just down the street of Little San Juan, talking about his identity as a Rican in Puerto Rico, speaking of uniting and rejecting questions of authenticity based on geographic location, that whole identity mismatch. But I think kind of under this like Puerto Rican umbrella, they have started a campaign that displays the work of artists from Puerto Rico and the diaspora, right, to unite, to call attention to the centenario, I can't say it in English, of the Jones Act that provided citizenship to Puerto Ricans and its complexity. They also have a video where some of the members, Mary and Chaggy, talk about the ways in which they perceive the Promesa. Not surprisingly, they were critical of its ability to solve the debt and to suggest then instead that through Puerto Rican cultural celebration, we will do the work of world making. And I really heard Senator Rivera's call that we must commit ourselves in a way that we have never before, and Edwin Melendez saying that we need to ask for federal officials, right, to advocate for the American citizens in Puerto Rico, and that's what the FED-PR is also asking. So you can go online and they'll, based on your location, tell you who to call and what to say, and there's a script already up there. So my recommendation here today is to listen to these suggestions and to support them. Just to not reinvent the wheel, the work is already out there. Just join them in Puerto Rican world making. That's it.
Can I comment with that?
Let's go to Keishla because we also have Ángel, and then hold on to that thought. Thank you.
So hi everyone, I'm Keishla Rivera-Lopez. I'm at Rutgers University in Newark in the American Studies program. I'm a PhD student, and my presentation is a little different. So I look at Jameson's literature a bit and use that to kind of construct an idea that trauma and catastrophe are not utopic at all. Although Jameson argues that catastrophe is utopia because you can find radical alternatives and have all these like new ideas, but I do not agree. And I used 2 moments to talk about that. I talk about a historical moment, which is the militarization and the colonization of the island, but more specifically in Vieques, and how the actual radical movement is the collectivization of peasants and the working class when they actually fought the military out of the naval base. And more specifically, I talk about trauma in that context where Juan Felipe, or I'm getting his name where Juan Mapepe Felipe was killed by one of the security guards with bomb testing, and the governor at the time still continued to have bomb testing, so there is no actual justice for him. And I argue that trauma can be like distributed post-generationally, and that has countered Jameson's argument about utopia. And that was a big part of my argument, but I want to focus more on Hurricane Maria, the aftermath in Puerto Rico. And so really quickly, I want to just go through a few images that I found online that show what's going on there, because the current president negates that there's actually going on. So this is, I think, from The Nation, but you see there's a lot of debris and destruction. Oh, and people are drinking water from rivers, and are contacting diseases that are deadly. Yeah, it's more. So it's just like a visual collage of like what is happening over there. Oh, and I'm also thinking about like keywords that we're using to talk about this. We're talking about humanitarian crisis, catastrophe, colonial neglect, colony. And so I thought when this title said Puerto Rico is being treated like a colony, that it's kind of funny because it actually is a colony. And what does it mean when we think about Puerto Rico? I read a statistic that 55% of Americans on the state side did not know Puerto Rico was a colony or that Puerto Ricans were Americans. So it's kind of like we have to challenge rhetoric and like the configurations of what does it mean to be Puerto Rican. And then again, I'll talk about second class because I think we could extend that further and just say that these citizens are disposable, and we can like have a biopolitical conversation about that. But I don't go too into that into this. And then we just have these tweets, which I will not read, but the current sitting president is denying the status and the catastrophe that's going on. And when the person who represents the nation is distributing that everywhere, that just doesn't help, and it creates all these like false ideologies within our country and beyond. And the main part of my argument is that since he takes it as a joke, it doesn't deem catastrophe, and therefore there is no utopia in the way that Jameson sees it. So that's it. I'll just go back to what so in talking about Pope Maria, I'm thinking about taking second-class citizenship further. I want to problematize how we construct citizenship in this country. For example, African Americans have relentlessly fought and advocated for their citizenship and their rights in this country, and are still killed at the hands of the state and don't receive justice. Which is why we are currently in a time where Black people need to remind our government and society that Black lives matter. And I think in light of Maria, Puerto Ricans and allies are backfiring against the U.S. government, saying we matter too, because Puerto Ricans are U.S. citizens. But I think despite being citizens, help and aid should happen as a humanitarian effort. But that even though we are citizens, that does grant us rights, and we're not treated that way when it comes to this catastrophe. And if we look back in U.S. history, and even if we concentrate on the present, we know that citizenship does not guarantee equality or respect. And for instance, Edwin Melendez wrote, when the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal called Puerto Rico second class, they were hinting at the reason for President Donald Trump's refusal to waive the Jones Act restrictions on maritime transportation for hurricane relief after Hurricane Maria devastated the island. A few days later, facing public outrage, he granted a waiver for 10 days. In contrast, the Trump administration granted similar waivers to Texas and Florida immediately after Hurricanes Harvey and Irma crashed into those states. All told, it took President Trump 8 days to grant a waiver to Puerto Rico. And I'm saying that this commentary alludes to a greater ideological and structural problem with the relationship between U.S. and Puerto Rico. If Puerto Rico was considered a part of the United States in the way that Florida and Texas are, then Puerto Ricans would have received aid instantly and their dire condition would have been taken seriously. Instead, the president mocks Puerto Ricans and blames their situation on the pre-existing failing electric grid and their max debt, and the grid is actually not dysfunctional. And in fact, the president shared on Twitter, which I showed, tweets about how you have to worry about your own debt, this is your fault, you're lazy, you're incompetent. And then apart from the current sitting president's mockery, legislation and economic policies, affect the psychological and economical and political statuses of Puerto Ricans, such as the Promesa bill, which Nelia mentioned, and La Junta, the Financial Oversight and Management Board. And I'm no economic expert, but I'm only saying this to show how what that legislation looks like they're bigger metaphors, like we're seeing Puerto Rico differently. And even after Maria, the president was focused more on placing blame on Puerto Ricans and also attacking the NFL players who were protesting, whereas this is a crisis and it took 8 days to respond and then 10 days to just lift the Jones Act, which should have been indeterminate. So I'm saying that, oh, and also, sorry, I'm just not used to this format, it's all over the place. Also, 5 days after the hurricane, the president was more concerned with Puerto Ricans repaying their debt to predatory lenders instead of focusing on what are we doing to save lives? How can we reestablish the community and infrastructure? So I want to say that this again reiterates the U.S. government configures the Puerto Rican population. And just to show that there's a lack of sovereignty and denial of citizenship rights, that is pretty metaphorical of a colonial relationship and exacerbated the colonial condition in Puerto Rico. And not only showing second-class citizenship in the U.S. imaginary, but it also shows that these are racialized colonial subjects that are disposable. And also, when he arrived in Puerto Rico to do a press conference, he compared the suffering and the pain and the trauma to Hurricane Katrina victims. And I would say that we don't need to iterate what you need to do in a humanitarian crisis, but also you don't compare, you don't do oppositional politics. And he also, is really disrespectful and took it as a joke. He threw paper towels at Puerto Ricans at a press conference. I'm just saying all this to show that there is no respect, that it isn't just second-class citizenship, it's just, we're viewing this,
In addition to that, the governor of Puerto Rico submitted to FEMA an application for TSA, and that's emergency housing for Puerto Ricans who are displaced by the storm, to get hotels for up to 60 days, and still has been no response. Whereas when Texas,
it went through this morning.
Oh, it went through this morning, because I checked this morning, it wasn't done. Whereas versus contrast that to Texas and Florida that applied and got a response within 24 hours. So it just goes to show you the disparity there.
Thank you. The entire visit was a mockery of the suffering of the Puerto Rican people in general. During his visit, the Trump administration also showed a questionable commitment to recovery in Puerto Rico, with the president threatening to withdraw FEMA on October 12th, and we're here on October 28th, and we know that there's still precarious conditions going on in a situation and that we need all the help that we can get. And a few weeks before Hurricane Maria, Hurricane Harvey hit Texas, and Trump donated $1 million of his own personal money to help people in Texas, whereas he offered loans to Puerto Rico. So this just shows that Puerto Ricans are way past second-class citizenship, which is what I'm arguing. And then also with the U.S. Navy hospital ship, the USNS Comfort Hospital ship was sent to aid relief efforts for Hurricanes Katrina and Rita immediately after the storms, but it took the U.S. military 6 days to order deployment to deploy to assist Puerto Rico, and 10 days after it was ordered, it was still sitting in Virginia. So if we don't take dire situations seriously, like what does this say about the relationship between the state and its subjects? So in all, I would say that any utopian notion or impulse seen in catastrophic moments are actually fleeting and do not provide any lasting effect. And in turn, there is no real utopian moment. Can we even suggest that the utopian suspension is real? The desire of utopia, which leads to the actual utopian impulse, must be concrete and ongoing, as Jameson says. But conceivably, these traumatic effects and memories that are experienced either individually or collectively contribute to the haunting legacy of the catastrophic U.S. militarization on the island, and especially to the survivors post-Maria. These effects daunt the coming generations in the form of a colonial ghost. In addition, intrinsic to transgenerational haunting is the colonization of the psychic space. Gabrielle Schwab invites us to confront the Holocaust as a violent history that requires decolonization of the mind and of the psychic space as a political necessity, where the prerequisite of decolonization is needed to move towards any utopian imagination of the future. Puerto Rico's state of coloniality, which is perpetuated by the government of the United States, fundamentally rejects projects of decolonization. Bearing this in mind, it seems that the colonial ghost of the American Empire is quasi-permanent, where the haunting and trauma exists like a mist over the nation. And which is why I want to close by saying that for Puerto Rico, I don't see any form of utopia within colonialism or a colonial state. Thank you.
So Ángel.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. International solidarity is, among other noble principles, about knowledge of the world so you may stand with its peoples. Again, my name is Ángel Martínez. I'm on the affiliate faculty of Antioch University, where I also received my PhD in leadership and change. My dissertation focusing on the poetic experiences of Puerto Rican diaspora in the United States college and university system. And what I want to talk to you about today, first, I just want to give a big shout out to my two esteemed colleagues who went before me. And just want to say thanks to both of you for your wonderful presentations. I mean, this is a conversation that needs to continue. And part of the way the conversation can continue is how can we find ways to start documenting not only all these catastrophic events that we've experienced, but also the struggles against the catastrophe and struggles for justice, unity, freedom, and dignity that we need to address here. And all of us in this room as scholars have many different avenues we could do this. And I would like to propose today, because my presentation is going to be a little different, because I want to think about how can we use performance, which is a wonderful area for studies of the Puerto Rican people. It's been very well documented in the Puerto Rican studies arena, and a lot more, it shows a lot of promise to discuss culture as a framework of justice. I also like to ask us to consider cultural expression as a research methodology. I was encouraged in this field, and I dedicate my presentation today to Dr. Karrieann, who passed not more than a couple of weeks ago, who was very instrumental in my dissertation for telling me that I had to put more poetry in my dissertation and my research. And I want to pass on by encouraging everybody with some poetic bent, since I am a poet as myself, with the Brothers Rising Poetry Collective, as well as a professor at Antioch University. I would like to invite all you creative types to think about how can you use your creativity as research. Now, the first part I just read from you was taken out of a diary I wrote I call my presentation False Promesa plus Real Maria. And I started to doing this research as a Promesa hurricane diary. And I started writing down thoughts and feelings and ideas. And we need to think about that as possibilities for research. As I said right here, a purpose of Moments for International Solidarity is to turn pain into power. In a Promesa-infested post-Maria landscape, pain must be turned into a force to sweep away oppression. I began doing this in sort of scholarship, thinking that because we as scholars must honor creativity as a way of understanding culture as a key dimension in understanding leadership and change. And in short, culture as a way to scholarship. I was inspired to do this by the novel La Peregrinación de Bajuan, The Pilgrimage of Bajuan by Eugenio María de Hostos, who, as you know, for those who are familiar with the book, started as a poem novel in prose. But the fact was he wrote it as a diary. And that inspired me very, very deeply. And he wrote it as a form of diary with dates indicating the passing of times of events and reflections. And it's an appropriate approach. The theme of pilgrimage is the base for Bajuan's journey across the sea, and a diary denotes to me a method of recording a journey of pilgrimage. And again, I call this a diaristic approach because I like to think about how we can use arts as data for our research. So for example, I wrote here in an earlier presentation, I first experimented with the diaristic approach when I was doing the research on Hostos's novel. I wrote something that I'm looking at in preparation for today, and I found it incredibly prescient. I was writing how the voyage is characterized by a word that appears frequently in the text, melancholia, melancholy. The melancholy is crucial to understanding the tone of the book. Bajuan is unhappy with his feeling obligated to leave his beloved island for a place he considers as the source of its troubles, the colonial power of metropolitan Spain. I stopped there because I said to myself, substitute Spain with the United States, you can bring similar terms today. And I was really struck when I realized the power of it, and that's why I started to compose this diary, to start getting some inspiration for how we could think about how to do the research for what we're experiencing in Puerto Rico, post Promesa, post Maria, post these moments of double crises that we are facing now, and how we can figure out more creative ways to do it. One entry I wrote is simply called Gasoline and Diesel, and I was writing, this is the 3rd of October, excuse me, and on the 3rd of October, I was hearing from a couple sources about what do people need in Puerto Rico. And I wrote, I have heard from 2 people there already that gasoline and diesel are in tremendous need to run generators. And that would really struck me. And that's something I wanted to write down. And that gave me a chance to think about how now we talk about how to build resistance, such as the black and white Rican flag as moments of resistance. We need, as we heard already, talk about culture as resistance. How can we create a resistance through our research? I wrote, the right to fuel is the right to live. I'm not sure if that is in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but in light of this, for which catastrophe is an understatement, it should be a right. Now, diaries have been an area of research in terms of facilitating understanding of a story as it is occurring. There are such things as what Bulger, Davis, and Raffaele call diary methods. In the area of psychology, they talk about how understanding the poem novel, Hostos, it's valid for the fact that little time is elapsed between an event and its documentation in diaries. So by using diaries to so little time happens in between be a great source for getting that feeling. Because remember, when we learn affectively, we're learning things from the heart. And in the process, you're creating field notes like an anthropologist would use. Like for the book I was reading, I was using Baijuwan's diary as field notes. I created field notes. The only difference is that my field notes were based on his field notes, and it was based on an author's imagination. And when you're doing this, it's kind of hard to adhere to certain styles, like we're used to APA and MLA. So you have to create your own style. So you have to be creative. I was realizing the beauty of a diary, and through an understanding of Baijuwan's pilgrims, I'm ready to explore again what a diary is meant to be. And this was very, very critical in helping me understand how we can explore issues, what citizenship means to the people of Puerto Rico, and what it does and can mean to Puerto Ricans connected to their homeland far away in presidential voting districts in the United States. I began this project the way to be part of this presentation today. And I admitted that I was open to the possibility of whatever I proposed. It would be barely resembling the final product when and if presented. I willingly engage in unorthodox approaches to challenge a colonial status that subscribes to old colonial orthodoxies, yet mainstream discourse tries to claim it exists in a way that we cannot avoid the hegemony. We cannot avoid the orthodoxies, even though these very same mainstream sources could never ever admit that this is a hegemony. We counter-hegemonically must always challenge those that dwell in a political thinking that can rationalize even crimes against humanity. And even in this diary, there are even personal moments. I even recorded a moment when I had a chance to call my aunt in Puerto Rico. And in the calling, she picked up the phone, which was a first surprise for me. She said, "Aló, aló." I explained, "Bendición, tu sobrino, Ángel." And all I could hear was, "Aló, aló." Then I realized she couldn't hear me. Living in Sabana Grande, I realized that there was no electricity up till just a few days ago, according to my other aunt who was taking care of her. And I figured, okay, this is a mistake. Got to hang up, call again. And I tried calling again. Same thing. Aló, aló. Now, I guess from a researcher's and a personal perspective, that could be sad. But I found it bittersweet, actually, because I heard the voice of a healthy 82 years old, my aunt, and she could not hear me, but I could hear her. And that just made all the difference. Even as she said, no te oigo, no te oigo. As I heard her over the phone, that was me, just so she knew. Why I said that, I do not know, except perhaps as a reaction, some long shot attempt at empathy over silence. And we need to overcome those moments of silence. And I recorded a couple more. And also had a chance to even reflect again on Carolyn Kenny, her influence on me. How she was always insisted I put poetry at the center of my scholarship. So I invite everybody to put creativity, if you have it, at the center of your scholarship, your research. And I accept the idea with prose and vision. I just want to close by saying thank you for this time, man. Make art your research, your methodology, and your way of learning the truth.
Thank you. Thank you. So it's interesting. I don't know. I think we're here till 4:15, right? Okay, so we have like 10 minutes. I know for a fact that Mary Leonard, because I have that connection, is talking about documenting, but from a filmmaker's perspective. So it's interesting that you were also talking about documenting. throughout all of this, but I'd like to open it up to any questions, comments, recommendations. I believe that is our task right now. Yes, here and then over there.
Okay, I can make it very short, so make it really short. First of all, when I hear giving your names, I am so impressed. And I am kind of jealous because I am unfortunate in my life. But I'm coming here to Puerto Rico because I'm concerned. One of the best moments in my life is in Puerto Rico. So I'm very touched when I hear you talk, and each one, I say, wow, I really am in my heart. I'm a little bit jealous, which is another conversation. But I think that because we could do some type of influence. And the reason I say that, because when you look at the Puerto Rican community, it's, certain steps or levels and all that. But you guys have an arrogance of your knowledge that you have to open that and make those possible changes. You have to be creative. You could be open-minded. Okay, open-minded to get it. Why? Because I feel in the subject of Puerto Rico, like they say in Spanish, tenemos que meter mano. Esto no es un chiste. Y este es el momento with the talents that you have. But I think that one of the things I was going to recommend is, for example, before the opinion, I was, changing the subject for a moment. I received in my computer from California, from the
you told me about
community.
this in the morning.
Could someone tell me what your opinion? Because you were talking about the petition.
Yeah.
And when I spoke to another gentleman, and once again, the people didn't see it, it was a petition from California that I had to call up. And it had to do that our governors should be attention of two issues, of hurricane, and also of the current, and also to the issues of Puerto Rico. They were talking promesas in particular. And I would say, wow, that seems really good, at least. And they told me they had 85% completed when they said that. So when I spoke to a lawyer, that's why I was asking to the lawyer, is it okay or not? And then I think when we were producing the issues of congressmen, when you were speaking about congressmen, the Soto, I think I've heard that you were approving the idea. Of course, we all agree with the hurricane, but I think some people, the gentleman said that no, we should not be involved at this moment.
And the promesa.
Yeah, why is that? Are you pro or against? I mean, if you're interested, if you give me your email, I'll show it to you. And the reason I say that, everybody makes a decision, but at least all of us should see every perspective and educate ourselves of all the subjects so that we be, but this is a battle, and the battle is intelligence. Okay, so can you give me your response?
I mean, so it's interesting because at that point, and it's the call for this symposium was for scholars to talk about promesa initially, right? And then now I feel like the urgency and the exigence is to get help to Puerto Rico, to rebuild Puerto Rico, right? And so I feel like that is the reason why that promesa debates have to kind of take a back seat, but they're still there because they are still meeting, right? So I feel like there was a conversation, it's a little dialectical, like a lot of scholars like to call it. But I want to open it up to other folks here.
Okay. So specific recommendations you want, correct? Okay, here's my specific recommendation. This is a panel called Reimagine Puerto Rico, correct? All right. So Reimagine Puerto Rico is
my presentation was well naked, but okay.
Okay. All right. I don't know. I saw the word reimagine somewhere up on that screen. That's what came into my head. So my feeling is this: the blueprint for reimagining Puerto Rico, the blueprint for resistance of the Puerto Rican diaspora, and the recognition of the present situation is all already there. There is a project that was done by Adalma Donado and Pedro Pietri around the Spirit Republic of Puerto Rico. Is to actually publish passports. Okay, they established something called the Puerto Rican Embassy. Okay, when you talk about reimagining Puerto Rico, I mean to reimagine Puerto Rico as a republic is, I think, the most radical vision we could possibly have. For me, it's very hard. I'm gonna be straight up with you guys. It's very hard for me to sit at a conference like this and come at it from a perspective of, I am not an ahistorical person, right? I know that there have been a history of abuses that have been given at Puerto Rico. In conferences like this and other places, however, I'm kind of told that this is not the time to talk about it. We need to kind of shunt it off to the side. And my feeling is, as a writer and as a poet, no, this is exactly the time to talk about it. This is exactly the time to imagine it. This is exactly the time to reimagine it. And this is the ironic piece of it, is that this is an old way of thinking. It's not a new way of thinking. This is a project that came along in the 80s and the 90s. Okay, you know, my feeling is that we have to reestablish a spirit of radical reimagination for the island, and I think that if you look closely at that particular piece of multimedia, I think that, you know, going forward, you know, we can, you know, there's all kinds of ways to think about it. Now that the diaspora is actually talking to the Puerto Ricans on the island, and now that we have this conversation that's going on, I think that we have to be real about what it is we have in Puerto Rico. We have, and if you want to talk about spirit, in the Taino creation myth, there is also the battle between Yo and the Huracan, right? And these things happen all throughout history. This is a moment in which we can reach back to our own cultural heritage and have a context for what truly is going on. And this is a moment to literally sweep away all the bullshit and start with some new shit, as I would say, right? Pardon my French, but I mean, that's the way to, and so yeah, that's what I said.
All right, I love the reference to Pedro Pietri. I'm thinking of, I don't know if I got this wrong, but like Juan Maribras was one person who actually created a passport, right?
Yeah.
So there's like an actual, like, not artistic, but actual governmental, whatever, right?
Political.
So there's that, but then I think that, you know, your presentation got at those issues in terms of like second-class citizenship. It's not that, it's like more than that. So I saw him and then.
So in looking at the statistics of Puerto Ricans in Puerto Rico and Puerto Ricans in the U.S., we have over 5 million Puerto Ricans here on the mainland. Making the calculation that Puerto Rico is now experiencing $95 billion worth of damage in order to get back to the way it was before. Not an improvement, but to the way it was before. If you want to reimagine Puerto Rico, if Puerto Rican Americans stateside contributed $48 each on a monthly basis, that would create a cash flow of $240 million that could go to the rebuilding of Puerto Rico. In addition to that, there's so much talent here. We have educators, we have electricians. Why can't our people here take that money once it's created, once it's there, and do the work that needs to be done instead of waiting for contractors to do it for us? I mean, you see that every day. You see it on the streets, people helping people looking for ways to make water, chefs going to Puerto Rico and feeding people. You have all the mayor of San Juan going out there, making sure that her people are being heard. We need to make sure our people are being heard from here. And the way to do that is to have money. Money talks.
Okay. I think first I would love to have a reading list that's probably shared with this group. I don't know if you have any emails. I think that's very useful to have.
Does anybody have notes, taking a note, so we can get that?
That'd be very effective because I think we need more metaphors. Just to your point about the kind of perversion of the utopian vision, I think of the dialectic between utopia and dystopia, and particularly the metaphor found in the name Puerto Rico itself. I mean, if you look at the name of Puerto Rico, in it, you see traces of inequality there. As we see in the island, Puerto Rico translated in English, no puertos ricos, or ports are rich, but our barrios are barren and empty. So in our name itself, our identity is tied to the idea of inequality within Puerto Rico itself. So being able to kind of understand that between, you know, dystopia, utopia, how do we create a new language and a new image, a new identity of ourselves that is birthed out of metaphors that are coming from folks that have that type of analysis that eschews inequality, but really thinks about how we can move forward into more kind of equitable and more idyllic vision of what Puerto Rico is and not stepping away from the name of Puerto Rico itself.
Thank you.
I would just like to throw out there, there's a Puerto Rico syllabus online. I think it's puertoricosyllabus.com. There's a bunch of reading there for people to like know history, know the current fiscal crisis, the debt crisis, and understand the ways in which those were created and how they keep going. So I would circulate that.
Is around and she was one of the creators, so.
Yeah, and Yarimar Bonilla and somebody, yeah, so they keep adding to that. But just want to throw it out there. Go ahead.
I totally agree with what you're saying. The groundwork for literature is every culture has their folklore, their mythology, but with us, many of us were disconnected from the mainland or from the island. I used to think that the mainland was the island.
Yeah, I like to call it that.
U.S. was the mainland. I was like,
It is.
but anyway, one of the foundations that I had to reconnect with my culture was Pura del Pre. You know, when I went into the library, they recruited me. I mean, I had no idea. I didn't think that librarianship was, you know, I didn't even know what that was. But when I saw the example that Pura del Pre laid out for us, you know, her mission and I started reading the folklore of Puerto Rico, Ote, La Cucarachita Martina. I mean, if anyone has read Ote, has anybody read Ote? It's the Nearside of Devil. Okay, it's about the depression. It's a children's story, but the background is the depression and poverty in Puerto Rico, where you have a man who goes out to forage for food every day, and he meets up with the devil. The wife has always told him to be careful, don't go to the devil, don't listen to him. But of course he's hungry, so he sees the devil eating, you know, some snail soup, and then I mean it goes on and on. But once you, as an adult, okay, I needed to reconnect with that because I had no idea how rich, you know, what was missing. I knew there was something missing, but I didn't really know what was missing. And our folklore is being censored. It's being, and many libraries, and I worked for the library for many years, they used to have collections called reading room collections where they saved all the Pura Petre books, they saved all the Matorel books, all the illustrated books that gave a picture to our children and even to the parents of what we had, what this gem that we had of culture. And now a lot of us, we're working with an empty gasoline tank. We're thinking, okay, yeah, let's do it, but we're empty because we don't have the folklore, we don't have what other kids are raised with, you know. So the libraries are, and I'm telling you, the libraries are dwindling. The collections are dwindling. They're not burning books, but they're getting rid of books. They're streamlining their collections. They're selling books. They're disposing of books. So it's very important that people reconnect with the basic, very basic. I'm not talking about scholarly stuff.
Yeah.
That's important, but real basic folklore, and that strengthens the spirit, because right now our spirit is crushed.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, we are so in need.
If I may, I mean, we're out of time, but I wanted to make a connection to what he was talking about, right? With like Pedro Pietri, for example. So I feel like the way in which Puerto Rican peoples in the past have made that connection to the folklore is to speak to the places where they're in now, right? So again, like this New York poetry. And so I hear you, and I know that, you know, the governmental processes that are ongoing that kind of connect to schools that we are all involved in have a lot to do with the dwindling of libraries and the not sponsoring and kind of censoring in some cases, right? Some literature. So I feel like that is our duty. So I hear you as one of the recommendations. I hear a connection to the past. I hear a connection to us in the diaspora going back and meaning taking things, monies, all of that we can give to Puerto Rico because it is the mainland. And that is my summary. I would love to talk to everyone. You all have a good.
Yeah. My recommendation real quickly. First of all, like I said, the intellectual perspective I see, and you're presenting something new. I'm thinking, let me see if I'm listening. I was proposing, suggesting that they have a symbolic song that we can sing it.
I remember.
Clyde is a good example of one. Like, don't forget, when you were using the one of using folklore, that would be beautiful. A nice symbol that we could, because every time we hear salsa, no, something symbolic that we could present.
There's a lot. I mean, Lin-Manuel Miranda's supposed to be
They
real
may have
one,
it,
right?
let's use it, let's choose one.
They even changed the lyrics of Despacito to bring it into the.
So there are a few, but it's up to.
Well, let's
people
find
to-
one, present the recommendation if possible. It's a good idea. Right?
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
I know.